What is the purpose of life? Is it happiness, power, influence, or knowledge? We've all explored this question throughout our lives, several times. But each time, we're left further from the truth, further from an answer. Whether in elementary school, when we're first experiencing the world, trying to make sense of what it is and why we're here. Or perhaps in high school, when we're trying to plan out our futures, trying to figure out where we fit in the grand scheme of things, in the billions and billions of people that make up our society. But each time we ask this question of purpose, we're left feeling more insignificant than before, as if we could have no specific purpose that means anything in the vastness of our society. So, afraid of that vastness, we begin to ignore our natural curiosities, our natural urges to learn more about ourselves, about the world in front of us, about our perceived realities. And instead, we look to the lives of the people around us. We look to what they say our world is and what they say we should do. We start to live like them. We start to live as society tells us to live, living without questioning our realities, living without trying to determine our specific purpose. And in doing this, we're left bottled up into our own cages, wondering what we actually fulfill. And the path forward to actually discovering what our purpose is within this society actually lies within philosophy, the greatest gift of human intelligence, which allows us to question the realities beyond our five senses, that allows us to question what we're here to do or what we're here not to do. And philosophy has shown its significance throughout human history. It's enabled us to move beyond individualist life into civilization. It's enabled us to go beyond the sole purpose of survival, from the sole purpose of the survival of the human race. Because human intelligence gives us the capacity to philosophize. It gives us the capacity to question what we see. And with philosophy, we find morals, we find values, and we find unity as a species in our common contribution to society. And in finding what that element is for each of us, it is unique. But philosophy has also broader implications in the context of all of society. But all it takes is the thoughts and the inquiries of one individual who's not satisfied with what they see around them, one individual whose philosophy says that no, that doesn't make sense. Something else is behind the truth. And take, for instance, Democritus. In 400 BCE, Democritus wondered, what happens if I take an object and I cut that object an infinite number of times? Will there ever be a point where I can no longer separate that object into a half? And this man's inquiries, his inquiries about a taken-for-granted reality that all others had simply looked at and said, it's normal, it's an object. He wondered what happens when you go beyond. And he paved our path forward to learning about atomic structure. His initial inquiries paved the way forward for other scientists, other philosophers, to adopt his ideas as their own, spurring society forward to pave a path forward to progress, where society is better able and more capable to address its issues, its global issues, and for society to protect and preserve its people while progressing the human race. And oftentimes, when considering philosophy like this, I wonder, what's the distinction between humanity and other species? What about humans gives us a uniqueness to this life? What sets us apart from these other species? With natural selection, it seems that we would be confined to this idea of survival. And at some point, genetic evolution would usurp our human capacity for intelligence that gives us the ability to move forward past our problems. But despite the possibilities of philosophy, through both atomic structure that paved forward all possible technological advancements, medicine, and so forth, and also in the 1600s with Enlightenment-era philosophers, Hobbes, Locke, Montesquieu, Rousseau, all these philosophers had initial understandings and questions about what society is meant to do, how best to foster the growth of society. And they determined through these inquiries that the purpose was through the growth of the people, through the voice of the people, to unite civilization. And their initial inquiries, the inquiries of these singular individuals, resulted in what we now know as democracy. Democracy that governs the billions and billions of people in our world and prevents mass conflict. But despite the significant implications of philosophy, of philosophical inquiry from singular individuals, it's stifled in today's world. It's a matter that is confined to the times of the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans. Philosophy is now simply a world among the scholars. We're studying the works of the ancient philosophers. And even in our schools, philosophy is stifled. Philosophical inquiry is stifled, making it difficult to find our own individualities that are essential to the growth of society and for civilization. In school, take for instance, you have a teacher teaching a concept in class. They provide a lecture. Students note it down, taking it all down as a reality, as an objective truth that cannot be further questioned. And while questions are allowed in class to clarify a concept, to better understand it, questions about refutation are hardly ever seen. We never hear a question in class, say physics, where a student may ask, why does an object fall to Earth? Peers will laugh, the teacher will look at you funny, and say, gravity, obviously. That's what causes objects to fall to Earth. But the one question that you will never hear, the one question you'll never hear, is why do objects fall to the Earth? Why does gravity exist? Why does such a force of attraction exist between every two entities? And this force magically holds together our world, our realities as we know it. No, you will never hear that question, because that nature of inquiry is stifled throughout school. The nature of inquiry where we question the omniscient presence of our teachers, who have the answers to everything. And without those questions, we are unable to question our realities and pave the ways forward for society to progress and address issues that seemingly have no solution. And these kind of inquiries have proven to be successful in the past. With quantum mechanics, a questioning of whether or not our atomic structure was viable anymore resulted in the rise of quantum mechanics. And that's resulted in quantum computing and significant advances in our technology that have helped further medicine, further technology, further computing, and help protect and preserve and progress society. And so these inquiries are limited in our schooling. At the heart of our youth, at the heart of where philosophical inquiry is born, it's limited, it's restricted. Because it's much easier to accept these concepts as real, as fundamental, and as unchangeable than to question the very fundamentals of everything we know, of all our realities. So how do we break past these perceived comforts within these perceived realities in our world? Well, ancient philosopher Plato considered these questions, and he developed the allegory of the cave. Let me take you back in time. I want you to imagine that you're standing still in a cave. It's moist, it's quiet, it's dull, dimly lit, and you have a cold set of shackles around your neck, confining you and tethering you to the ground. You can't move around, you can't look. All you can see is a wall in front of you. And there are two prisoners beside you who are in the same experience. And you see this wall, and you see figures crossing this wall. And that's all you've ever seen. That's all you've ever seen throughout your life as your experience. That is your world. That is your reality. But now one day, you're set free from those shackles. And for the first time in your life, you're able to step back, and you're able to look at where you had been. You're able to look from a more omniscient presence of your reality. And you realize for the first time that behind you, there was a bridge. And on this bridge walked people with puppets over their heads. And behind that was a fire that cast over these puppets and lay a shadow on the wall, the shadows that were your perceived realities. And you're intrigued, because now you've just found that your entire realities were false. They were falsified. And so you head outside the cave and you see sunlight for the first time. You see trees, you smell flowers, pollen, you feel a breeze. You see and experience so many things that you could never have imagined of before. And excited, you hurriedly re-enter the cave to share with your fellow prisoners that their world is fake. But in the instant that you re-enter the cave, you find that you've been blinded. In being exposed to that bright sunlight, your eyes are no longer able to adjust to your old world, to that dark cave. And so, in your excitement to share with your fellow prisoners your reality, your newfound observations, they are left wondering, is it worth pursuing that truth? Is it worth questioning our realities to that extent that we are left harmed by the outside world, should it exist? That we are no longer able to perceive our continued comforts in the world that we know, in this world of the cave. And so you failed, simply because your fellow prisoners are so comfortable in their perceived realities. Now we, as individuals and as a society, have our own Plato's caves, our own caves that dictate our narrow perspectives, our natural perspectives that we take for granted, and that we are comfortable within, that we are afraid to question, to go beyond. But to truly understand ourselves, and to truly understand our innate purposes and what role we fulfill within society, it's necessary to step aside, to step into the eyes of an observer who can see you in your cave, who can see your perceived reality as the objective nature that it has. And they're able to identify the narrow boundaries that are established on your perspectives. And through philosophical inquiry, by questioning the entities beyond our five senses, by questioning our realities, we are able to gradually broaden our scopes. We're able to gradually unbind ourselves from the shackles that hold us into this Plato's cave, this narrow world that prevents us from being able to see what we mean in the context of this vast, vast society. And through philosophical inquiry, we're able to expand on that horizon. We are able to learn more about our role here. And by doing so, we are able to give the fundamental individuality that society needs to strive. It gives the breakthroughs for society to think outside of the box of this confined reality. But with the stifling nature of our education, it's hard to find our sense of direction and our individuality. So I ask you to question your realities, to escape your comforts. It is very possible that in unbinding your shackles and expanding your perspectives, you will come across a reality that is inconsistent with your beliefs, that you're not comfortable with. Perhaps we live in a simulation. Perhaps we're in a deep sleep that we'll one day wake up from as a more omniscient self. And these realities are something we will have to be okay with when we explore the truth. But unless we use philosophical inquiry to explore these truths and the potential reality that lies beyond our narrow worlds, we will never be able to identify our purpose and where we align with in society. Because purpose is innate to a functional society. Because purpose gives us an idea of how to move forward with our lives. Because it's not a goal, not something you can achieve. Purpose is an intentionality. It's a way of living. And purpose is guided by your philosophical inquiries that is unique just to yourself. Because as humanity, the independency of ourselves is fundamentally linked to our capacity for thought, our capacity to inquire. The questions we ask are unique from one another. But the moment we ignore that, the moment we stop questioning, we start to live the same lives, to think the same way. And we lose the fundamental individuality that society necessitates in order to progress. But once you find your purpose, you can best contribute to society because you've found your individualism, doing what humans do best, thinking. I'm Rishi Hazra, and my purpose is to explore my Plato's cave, to pursue the truth no matter the personal cost. And I hope that you, too, will be able to do that, explore the unknown. Thank you.